Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Jana Pargova and I'm the Communication Manager for the Smart Cities Information System. The topic of today's webinar is Regulatory, Financial and Social Barriers and Solutions for Innovation, Lessons Learned from EU Smart Cities Projects. Our speakers today are Jorge Núñez Ferrer from the Center of European Policy Studies, Miguel Garcia Fuentes from the Cardiff Technology Center, and Craig Martin from Delft University of Technology. I'll just briefly introduce the speakers to you. Jorge is a Senior Research Fellow at the Center of European Policy Studies and is a recognized specialist in EU budgetary and financial instruments. He is also involved in EU smart city policies. He is an integral part of the development of the Smart Cities Information System, with a focus on non-technical issues affecting the performance and results of Smart Cities projects, which is our topic today, in fact. Miguel Garcia Fuentes is European Project Coordinator at the Energy Division of Cardiff Technology Center. He is an expert in the field of smart cities and nearly zero energy cities, and currently works as a project coordinator of the Horizon 2020 Lighthouse project REMOURBAN. Dr. Craig Martin is Assistant Professor of Climate Design and Sustainability at TU Delft and is currently involved in the EU-funded SCIS project, where he is responsible for the SWOT Studio and SCIS Roadshow, both on-site urban-intensive workshops that collaborate with institutions and city stakeholders all over the world to propose vital and realizable sustainable city visions. And here is a brief overview of how the webinar will progress today. We will start by outlining the Smart Cities Information System framework for addressing non-technical issues in the fields of energy, mobility and transport and ICT. And we will showcase examples of main financial and economic barriers, regulatory and administrative barriers, as well as measures needed to promote social acceptance and uptake of technologies and solutions among stakeholders. After that, Miguel Garcia will share the experience of the Horizon 2020 Lighthouse project REMOURBAN with non-technical challenges they have encountered in the implementation of the project and how these can be addressed and solved. Finally, Craig Martin will tell us more about the SCIS Roadshow and how this co-creative urban design approach can be used successfully in smart cities projects to tackle social barriers by engaging stakeholders and citizens. And just before we start, to mention that if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. We will have time to discuss them at the end. Now I will give the floor to Jorge Núñez Ferrer.
And I think we're getting there quite nicely because at the start it was like it is, more a cartoon, more a picture of what we were aiming for, but with time it's becoming an actual fact in the website, and I will show you how it is. But first of all, what was it for? I mean, we were thinking about different stakeholders, thinking what they need. So we saw, you know, people, the main people that need the solutions are really the cities, and people concerned are really the mayors that have to solve problems from people complaining. So I had this the idea, well, people are complaining about air quality, about they want something else, they want renewables, they want warmth, they want the houses to work. So the mayors, of course, get a bit despaired. They wonder what to do. So we go to SCIS and see what's going on around Europe in the projects and have ideas. And the same is with the architects, urban planners, and I actually have an experience in person of going somewhere, speaking with the planners, and they have problems, and they say, well, what are the examples? What can we do? And I said, well, I just opened the website and showed them some solutions. So there is the, you know, what kind of solutions there are, and how to solve it. So the same is, let's say, researchers, evaluators, even the European Commission, when they need to make the reports. You can be quite desperate in the past by having so many websites. I mean, these projects, Smart Cities project starts with a few, but by now we are getting into, just from the energy part, we have already 70 ones run by through Horizon with the DG Energy part, but they are growing and growing. And if you wanted to find information, you had to go to different documents, and each of them have different deliverables, different key performance indicators. So you can get quite crazy if you try to evaluate. And the idea is that, okay, with a little bit slight more complication, but you just press some buttons and you will get your reports without the need to really get crazy trying to find the stuff in different websites or getting completely different formats. So what we have here at the end is one for all and all for one, so very Musketeer style, but the point is that you have a one-stop shop. This means there's one website for all the projects, and all the projects are going to one website. This is the idea of this just invented 10 minutes ago slogan that I added because I find it funny. But the whole point is that you have one-stop shop. You have common key performance indicators. It's designed to be easily to navigate. It's also designed to be easy to put information in, but that's another story. It is easy to compare and understand projects. And there are multiple ways to access information. So it's quite, it's customer oriented. You do not need, 2 PhDs to actually navigate the website, which is quite an achievement when you think about what this website is about. So policy, finance, regulation, stakeholders, value. What is the value of this information, and how do we get this? How do you use it? But how do we get it? How to manipulate it? So the reason for looking at this information and what is the value of it? Well, the technical, but the non-technical barriers are more likely to kill innovation. It's quite interesting looking at the projects. The experience and the finding that we have here is that projects have failed for reasons that have nothing to do with what we're testing. Sometimes it's lawsuits because of some company not liking that another company wants some kind of procurement for carrying some bricks, whatever. So you have a lot of reasons that are totally unrelated to the innovation. They are even more dangerous than say that something doesn't work, because then you can just twist it and maybe find solutions. A project developer actually said that producing just the data of it's not giving you the whole story. You get the data, you get information, but what is behind it? I mean, a lot of the times the whole outcome, even the future replication or something, it's cannot be seen without knowing what happened in the project. Maybe project failed, but why? And it's the data of the actual technical data will not show you this kind of information. So how do we get this information? So we have the technical information from a technical monitoring database, which is actually filled by people through an online system, by people, I mean the projects, people that are developing the projects, and this allows us with common parameters. You can see the projects and see the results with common indicators. So you don't have to interpret them to see maybe they have different descriptions. The results, technical results, are also analyzed to see and the project final data. And this comes on the website, and you can find the outputs. For policy and finance and regulation, so we call it policy and finance, but it goes into regulation, stakeholder behavior. We need to collect this information really through questionnaires. We need to go and ask and find out the experiences. You need to think about what happened in a place when something goes wrong. We need to go a bit behind and try to find out what's going on so we can actually put it for you out. So how to find the information? So for this, I will show it to you directly on the website. So we have a very nice website. I suppose you have seen it. But the most interesting is that you can find here, you have here lessons learned. This is where we get the lessons of whatever, of the projects. But you can actually find them if you go through the subjects. We have divided them in energy.
Jorge, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we are just seeing the presentation. We are not seeing the website.
Okay, I will just do something with the presentation. You have to see my screen, don't you? So, and my screen shows my website. You cannot see my website, the website now?
No. In the button where you have to show the screen, You can, there is a little arrow, and there you can choose which part to show.
Ah, because it says main screen, just a window. I will put, okay, I will put now this. Can you see now the?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, I will just use, and then I have to remember to change it again backwards, otherwise I will have a big problem. What we can do is, I said, we have a nice website. So you have here lessons learned, where we will put all of this. We now changed it to lessons learned. Before it was called policy and finance, but it's lessons because it's really the lessons from projects. And the lessons from projects, we are not only putting the ones from the projects that are financed by the EU, but we are trying to find a little bit, do we have lessons from somewhere else? The Americans find something. If we find something, we will upload it there with some links, but I will go into that a bit later. We can also find the lessons through from the areas. You go to energy and you go to the projects, and you can actually find in these projects the lessons. So we have also created a system, thanks to our website developers. I mean, I have no idea how they did it, but it works, which is that whatever you are, you will find it your way. You go from a project into this, or you go from the cities, or from the map. So let's go from the map. I mean, here we have a very nice map, and the good thing about the map, if you can actually choose what you want to see on that. So you can actually reduce everything you see into very specific parts, but or you can see the whole thing, which if it does allow, it's okay. Let's reset it. So you have the map, and here you have all the projects and everything, and you can go on every part that you like. These maps allows you to find any project, so it's a way, it's nice. So let's go now here. Here we have a project of a site with this energy efficiency and housing. So first of all, you can actually immediately have at a glance all the results here from the basic indicators on energy savings, on emission savings, and you can compare this from the other parts of the same project. So what is it? So you can do this with every project. You can have a one in a glance results of the project just like this. So it's very simple. Then you can go to a lot more information. But let's go to the demo site for a moment and see the lessons. When you go to the site, you will have, you can see at a glance the results, but you can also go to the lessons learned. And the lessons learned, you just see what happens, and I will then show you the lessons. But this is the way you can find information. You can find information by going through the projects. But you will find it also if you go backwards through these tabs to the actually lessons, main lesson site. So it's easy to go back to the lessons learned and find things. This is still building, so let's go here. So here you have the different issues, regulatory, administrative, energy, in energy, and the same for mobility and transport, and we are filling it by whatever we find in the projects. So you can really, you have a description, and then you see what is happening in projects, and you can go to find the site and where it is that the issues have occurred. So this allows to find everything here. So this project, for example, you will find it also through this site, and you can find what's going on from the different projects. Here you have also the BMAP case here, and you have here the case that we were discussing. So it's easy to be moving around and finding out what happens. And then when you have found something interested, you can go to the project and see what they've done, find their documents, see it all. So this is a way to look around, and if you have a problem, to see if someone has solved it in any of these areas. So this is the way you can navigate and find a solution. So I would like to go now back, if this computer will allow me to go back to the presentation. So you should now be able to see back my presentation. Any luck with that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back. This was just to show you the website, and the issue that I was trying to show is is that it is a quite intuitive website to move around, and we are working on information, so it will be improving with time. We are writing now the reports on lessons, and this will then feed back in the quality of what is there, because we still are trying to filter all of this information that are coming to us from many projects. You have to think that we have over 70 projects now, with each of them demonstration sites. So we arrived to around 170 or more demonstration sites. So it really means that things are arriving, and we need to not only read it, but we need to find out information, call back, and start building up this. It's quite confusing process somewhere, but it slowly gets filtered, and then it appears on the website, and we're trying to improve every day how it works. But now let's do some examples. For example, here we have the this one that I was saying from BMAP, but we have the Alensas project. This is a demo site where we were having renovations, and this is a good example for inventiveness. We have a regulatory limitation, which means that the Swedish law does not allow to change rents for tenants if you improve the place. So you can imagine how the owners are really keen to do any kind of works if they know that they can never recover the cost, because they cannot change the rents unless the tenants leave and a new tenant come in. Any kind of changes during tenancy are not allowed to be added to this. This is a problem in many places, but this is very little interest from the owners. And the tenants don't have an interest to apply new things or to pay, especially all together. Getting joint agreements even in the buildings is difficult, but the tenants themselves, why should they want to change things if they may leave? So in fact, here you have the typical tenant owner problem, where nobody wants to do anything. So the solution is to really, one of the things that they've done is to change the terraces. If you can see them on there, that they had terraces, so they have been closed, added, and changed the rooms. So by changing the square meters of the house, because this terrace becomes part of the floor of the flat, you could add some rental income, so you could cover somehow some of the cost, and this means that the benefits of the changes will be shared between the owners and the tenants, because they have less bills, but the owners can get some more rent. So here you have like an innovative solution from really thinking a bit laterally on this and solving a legal problem. So people can find this kind of solutions. Another thing that they had is this continuous dialogue. They created showrooms. Very important to have showrooms. So this is a message for everybody. They have newsletters, cooperations, direct interaction, and in some other project we found they had the website to communicate with the tenant. So there are all of these things that make the project possible or easier to be accepted. So this is one of them. But then we have another regulatory problem. Is in Spain there have been 3 illegal changes in the last years that have made that practically from a feed-in tariff you become taxed to go into the grid, and renewables lost their grid access, priority access. This is because of a long list of reasons. But the point is that a project got caught in the middle of this. So it means that the project lost a lot of their actual profitability after completion. So there are messages that we give. We also give recommendations at higher level, political, national, and EU, where we just explain, okay, what can we do to avoid drastic changes in regulation that kills projects, because many projects in Spain have been killed. Here, this one has finished, but in fact the problem is that the solar panels had to be, some of them darkened or actually taken out of service so that they would not go into the grid. So this is a real waste, but this was somehow unexpected. From the other side, if you look at the policy situation in the country, that risk was getting bigger and bigger when the project was being developed. This is already a couple of years in advance. They were saying that the government will hit. So the issue is that the risk analysis has to take into account that maybe this happens, so that it is really incorporated. This is a message not only for people doing Horizon projects. This is one point, but it's a message to any developer, any replicator, anybody, that one has to be looking a bit carefully about what is taken for granted. Now we have other examples. We have Geocom site in Galanta. The Geocom is because it's about geothermal energy. There they have, there was already geothermal energy, but they have improved it. The issue that they had that is how to get back the investment. This is a problem because they didn't find a way to cover the costs afterwards of the system, how to make it profitable in the future. And also it's a question about replication in other places. You know, if these are costly projects, how do you charge when you have certain conditions? And the conditions is because it can also be legal. So they gave, in this project, they gave different possibilities depending on what kind of legal situation you are in. So first of all is, can you monetize and charge environmental and social benefits of some changes, you know, air quality things and quality of life, or better heating. Can you find a way to monetize it, and is there a possibility to make people pay for it? It's a very delicate issue to make people pay. Some possibilities are to charge fees. Let's imagine the buildings are schools, so you say parents of the school children pay some fees, but this may be even legally not possible. Or there are protection from tenants, so you have to find a way. So the ultimate solution, when you cannot charge people, is to find a way with public-private partnerships. This means that the public sector takes the, you know, you can even take a kind of financial instrument, EIB loan, whatever, to finance this, and then it is actually, there are some ways from the public side to cover these extra costs and things that cannot be covered. So there are ways to do it. You have grants, you have energy subsidies, you have feed-in tariffs. Also, there are so many ways also that you can handle. And so the question is to find the best solution. And here we have an example where they had a problem and they had to find a mixed output from this. So this is these are the kinds of things we are looking at, so that we can help other projects get inspired and find or try to explore avenues when they think that they don't have one. They have to think a bit laterally, like the Swedish case. When you find a barrier, maybe you have to find something that is different than what you expected to be able to use. This is important with Horizon. You get a grant, but imagine when you're speaking about replication of a technology and you're not getting that. You really need to find solutions to be able to cover it. So this is really, I wanted just to show you some examples. For the rest, I recommend you two things. First is to explore the website. Still, we will be working more on the lessons part. It needs a bit more in-depth work, but then we are writing the report, which is the one that will feed them the next stage. And there's where we look a bit more in depth what can be done when you have problems, and what are the lessons really coming from these projects. We really focus on the lessons from the project. We cannot look at everything in the world, but you will find on the website some examples that are international, added under the regulatory and on other things, with links to where are the documents where they explain the solutions in these other countries. Well, thank you very much, and I hope it was interesting, and please ask any questions later. Thank you. Now let me try to unshare the website.
I can manage. Thank you. Thank you, Jorge. Now we will move to Miguel Garcia Fuentes, who will tell you about the non-technical issues that they have encountered in the REMOURBAN Lighthouse project. To you, Miguel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jana. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
And can you hear me properly? Yeah, I guess, yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, so, well, good morning, everyone, and, well, thank you very much, Jana, for inviting me to give this presentation within this webinar, and thank you to SCIS. So, well, I'm Miguel Garcia, and I'm the project coordinator of REMOURBAN, so I will try to share with you, well, some of these non-technical barriers that we have identified in this time in which we have been working in the project. For those that don't know, REMOURBAN is an Horizon 2020 project funded by the European Commission, and it's a lighthouse project in which we are working on implementing some measures and some kind of actions related to a smart city implementations in our lighthouse cities. It's a project in which we are working at the end, or where our main objective and goal is to provide a kind of a model through which we can support other cities in Europe in order to become smarter and more sustainable. And for this, we are working on implementing first this model and delivering this model throughout these implementations that we are carrying out in our cities, in the cities in our consortium, in order to guide this model to other cities and to replicate not only the technologies but also the methodologies that we are developing. A model that looks like this picture that I hope that you can see now, where we are working on identifying or providing somehow which are the best practices and these methodologies and these different technologies and strategies that can be implemented in order to deliver smarter and more sustainable environments. We are working in this kind of model in 3 different axes, in trying to deliver and define how the different phases have to be implemented in order to address the different temporal goals, starting from the auditing of the city and then finalizing with the assessment of the city and covering all the phases in the middle. We are working on providing some kind of solutions about technologies in the 3 fields in which we are working, about sustainable mobility and sustainable districts and built environment through energy actions and integrated infrastructures and processes. And where we are working in the one of the probably most important parts, that is about the enablers and the non-technical actions and strategies that can be implemented when talking about how to manage these kind of strategies, how to evaluate them, and how to finance them. And this is, or in this part about the enablers, is where we are working on defining or identifying which are the main barriers that we can find when implementing these sort of projects. Barriers that we have identified, we have analyzed, and for which we are trying to provide some kind of answers or solutions or best practices that we are willing to share with other cities in Europe in order to provide somehow some support for them on the experiences that we are having in our project. The first block of these barriers that we have identified is regarding the social and cultural issues, where we can, there are some very well-known barriers. For example, the still existing lack of confidence in some innovative energy efficient solutions coming from the citizens, the people living in our cities, but also coming from the municipalities, coming from different stakeholders. We still are finding that we have some bad opinions regarding these technologies from the residents or from the people that will be affected or benefited from these actions, who still don't know or don't understand the benefits behind these measures. And other kind of barriers, for example, the lack of knowledge in financial options in order to tackle this sort of strategies or solutions, the lack of best practices, where we are still finding that there is a lack of information or shared information about how these best practices can be replicated or implemented. Or in the specific case of the electromobility sector, there's still lack or difficulty to identify which are the savings coming from these sort of actions. So regarding these barriers, what we have identified is that they are somehow difficult to be solved because, or not to be solved, but yes, to be controlled, because it's very difficult, or there is a little control that we can establish over them. And some barriers that we can somehow solve through establishing proper communication mechanisms, where the communication can turn into the key aspect in order to overcome them and to make people understand which are the benefits and which are the implications of these solutions. Where we have identified, or we have delivered some best practices that can be followed in order to address properly these communication strategies mechanisms to avoid these barriers. For example, thinking of the communication as or giving a big priority to the communication in the smart city agenda for the city, devoting more resources. We are finding that usually municipalities or some stakeholders are not dedicating proper or enough resources to the communication to the people that will be affected by these implementations. We have to think of localizing the communication. Is of course important to share and to communicate at national, regional, or international levels. But the most important is at local level, where we have to implement strategies in order to let the people know of the actions that will be implemented in their cities, and focus the key messages on the benefits of the project. So for this, we've been working in REMOURBAN on establishing a kind of a two-way communication strategy, focusing, delivering our international communication, where we are thinking of sharing, or where we are sharing all these messages at international level with other cities in Europe, but having a very strong and very important part on local communication, where we have established a kind of local desks in the 5 cities that we have involved in our project, where we are organizing some workshops, some meetings in order to share this information, share these messages in a plain language, using the tools according to the different groups or target groups to which we are communicating, and analyzing, well, how they are somehow responding to the different mechanisms that we are implementing. Something that we have analyzed or identified during all these months in which we've been working in the project regarding the barriers is that not all the barriers are real. Some of them are only perceived barriers, are barriers that are related to behavioral aspects from the people using these technologies, and in which, there's important to analyze whether the barrier that we are encountering or that we are trying to overcome is real or not, because probably for those barriers that are not real, that are only perceived, which is, for example, the case related to electromobility regarding the range anxiety, where people is somehow reluctant to use this kind of technology because they think that they will run out of battery and they will not be able to make some kilometers with the vehicle and so on. For this, we will need to apply specific communication mechanisms, specific solutions in order to overcome them that are different from those that are actually real barriers. Some perceived barriers that are not only from the citizens is also something that we have identified, but they are coming as well from the public sector, where we can identify that, in the public sector or in the organizations belonging to the public authorities, there is still some kind of difficulties in order to address or to implement some innovative procurement processes, thinking that they will not work, or thinking that they are not in line with the regulations, and that they will not be effective in order to implement certain strategies in the city. So this is something that is important to analyze, and for which we have to properly share best practices and information on things that we are already implementing in these cities in order to overcome these barriers in other cities. We have identified as well another important barrier that is related to the use of data, where we find a kind of a contradiction, where people is usually happy to share information that is belonging to their private lives through, I don't know, Facebook or different social channels, family pictures and so on, but they are not willing to share information about their energy data, for example, because they think that this is something private, and this is something that, they are not aware, or they don't really understand, which is the use that will be given to this information and to this data. So for this, we need to work on being able to create some trust on the use that we are going to make with this data, and how this data will be used, and to communicate properly to the people that this will be for their benefit, and that we will be providing some added value services with this data that we are collecting and we are gathering, where usually we will find that people usually will have or will trust more on the public sector than on the private sector. So we will need to work with the public sector in order to create somehow this confidence and this trust on gathering data and collecting this data and making use with this information to provide some services. But probably when talking about the non-technical barriers, still the biggest group of barriers that we can identify is regarding the financial issues, where, we have this particularly critical issue related to some well-known barriers, for example, the high investment and the upfront costs that have to be somehow that have to be covered at the beginning of the implementation. the lack of some long-term guarantees for the energy prices, the long payback periods for some technologies, the fluctuations, and sometimes the cheaper fossil energy prices depending on some external issues and so on. So regarding these barriers, we still need to work on providing some innovative solutions and some innovative financial models in order to allow the implementation and replication of these technologies, where we probably find the biggest barrier related to the over-reliance on the EU funding, because usually we used to think that only EU funds are available for this sort of implementations, and that there is no possibility to access or to finance this sort of actions through other different, business models or financing schemes. So for this, we still need to work on creating these local business models, and to work on how these solutions can be financed and share this information with other cities to replicate the technologies. So for this, we are proposing some solutions, and in order to overcome all these barriers and others that we have identified. For example, implementing training programs in order to create somehow the local skill ecosystem in the city, to assist in promotion initiatives for different financing mechanisms, for example, crowdsourcing, microfinance, or community projects, which are very, very interesting solutions in order to overcome the financing related barriers, to establish entities that can share the risks and the costs, to externalize some of the investment costs and especially the risks through innovative contracting, and to provide some incentives to citizens and local governments that want to implement and to exploit the potentials for smart solutions. So in this sense, I will try to give some examples that we are trying to demonstrate within the project. And the first of them is regarding procurement processes, in this case applied to low energy districts, but that can be implemented to any other kind of technology or solution, where we identify still two important barriers. That the first one is that if we continue with these existing procurement processes or practices, we are somehow reinforcing the established standards, but we are somehow blocking the innovation. So we will continue having standardized processes and standardized solutions, but we will be blocking innovations. And we find as well that municipalities usually are tendering with very detailed specifications. So something very, very detailed with a low level of detailing, which we are somehow blocking or stopping the processes to test the market. So for this, in this case, we are testing the solution in the Lighthouse City of Nottingham. In our project, we have identified three possible solutions, which are to tender for bids that deliver solutions to urban challenges instead specific items or specific technologies or solutions. So we will be tendering for bigger solutions or bigger challenges with a bigger degree of freedom, where necessarily we need to change the evaluation of the scoring. So we cannot only evaluate as we are evaluating till now, but we need to add to this evaluation the performance, because we will be tendering based on performance. And for this, we need a kind of change in the minds of the municipalities in order to take the role of an intelligent customer and work with the construction sector or the different stakeholders that will be implementing the solution or the technology in a collaborative manner. So we need to somehow leverage these collaborations between the public sector and the private sector in order to foster innovation and this kind of innovative technologies. So we are implementing this and testing this model in the Lighthouse City of Nottingham, as I said before, and we are implementing it in this area of the district that we are retrofitting, that you can see here in this slide, where we are implementing, or in this case the people from Nottingham, the municipality is implementing an innovative procurement process based on as well on an innovative financial model. This innovative procurement that is based on performance, so they are not stating the technology that has to be implemented, they are not stating or including a very, very low level of detail on the solutions that have to be implemented, but they are opening and they are providing freedom to the different tenderers with the solutions that they want to implement or they want to provide in order to achieve some performance requirements that they are stating in this tender. And this is combined with this innovative financial model that is based on establishing an energy plan with the people that is living in these dwellings, in these houses that they are public owned, and establishing this energy plan in the sense that they will be paying for the energy to the housing company that will be, with their revenues coming from the savings, they will be paying for the investments that they will be covering at the beginning of the implementation. So this combination of the innovative financial scheme and the innovative procurement will lead to this innovation on this implementation and probably to achieve better results on these solutions. And the other example that I want to share is related to provide some incentives for electromobility in order to overcome the barriers that, as I said before, in most of the cases are only perceived barriers and not real barriers, for example, about the lack of charging infrastructure. So for this, we are working on implementing, in this case in the city of Valladolid, we are working on implementing an extensive infrastructure for charging the electric vehicles in different phases, in which in the first phase it will be free to charge for the people that owning an electric vehicle, and then moving to a payment-based model in different phases and in different steps, in the sense that we are somehow incentivizing through implementing this this charging infrastructure to provide some confidence to the people that want to move to these electromobility solutions and to use this kind of alternative mobility in order to be confident on that they will have enough charging infrastructure and then move into different models later on. And this that is combined with the establishment of low emission areas in the city, and also providing some other incentives, for example, free parking for the people owning these vehicles, specific lanes for the people that have this kind of electrical vehicles, in order to be somehow quicker on their mobility and to provide some benefits to the people using this kind of alternative mobility in order to foster and to leverage the implementation of these mobility solutions in the cities. So just to finalize, to let you know that all this information about the barriers that we have identified and all these somehow these best practices and recommendations can be found in our website. You can find this information in SCIS as well, where we are sharing some of these barriers and best practices. And particularly we have a specific deliverable that is a report on non-technical barriers, which is public and which you can access through our website. This is somehow part of the basis of our regeneration model that will be then shared with the cities as well, where we will combine the analysis of these barriers and best practices with best practices regarding the technical issues and the implementation of the different phases for the city transformation in order to provide this comprehensive and replicable model for the cities. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miguel, for the interesting presentation and the examples. Now we will move on to our final presentation for today by Craig Martin, who will talk about the good practice for stakeholder engagement that they're using in the EU project SCIS.
Hello everybody, I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Good. That's always a worry for us, isn't it? Okay. So, this. So, good morning. Thank you for inviting me, Jana and SCIS for this, and welcome and hello to everyone who's listening. Yeah, I'm Dr. Craig Martin. I'm going to talk about the SCIS Roadshow. Okay. So, what is the SCIS project? First of all, let's talk about SCIS. Well, SCIS is a large FP7 funded project, European funded project that aims at zero energy cities with a central role for citizens. The idea is to try and, with 23 partners, so it's a large project, is to empower and to motivate end users for long-term energy savings. There are various parts of the project. Some are demonstrator projects, some are leading, following cities and various aspects. Now, one aspect of it is the roadshow. That's what I'm going to talk about today. The roadshow, to be mathematical about it, it's in work package number 9. It's in a work package called dissemination, so it's all about communication and getting things to the doorstep of people across Europe. It's a 5-day on-site event model that develops a sustainable city vision with stakeholders, and to get stakeholders involved with the process. The image on the right hand side there, I'm going to kind of go through it as I go through my presentation, is the kind of the method within the roadshow. It's a 5-day model, but there's 3 months in the preparation for that. So the roadshow, basically citizens, that's the whole point of the roadshow, is to place them in the heart of the process that aims at design, strategies, guidelines, timelines at all scales of their own city. So we look at, design proposals at all scales, but also guidelines and how they can move forward with that. The numbers, well, we've completed 4 road shows. The first one was in Belfast. The second one, Izmir in Turkey, Dubrovnik, Croatia, and we've recently finished one in Menorca. So that was quite an interesting one because that was an island. So the energy inputs and outputs of the island were very interesting and unique to the project. 3 months in the preparation. It's 5 days when we all land there. All citizens are welcome. We make a big effort in inviting those and promoting the roadshow. 7 international sustainability experts go from various aspects of sustainability, from energy potential mapping, carbon accounting, architecture, urban planning, various experts there that we combine with the stakeholders. And we've got 6 cities left. So the next city will be Sevilla in Spain. Impact, well, healthy lifestyles, environmental comfort, building efficiency, basically independence from the fossil fuel economy and society that we live in at the moment. But the main impact is that we want everyone to know that and have confidence that sustainability is for everyone who wants it. I think that's the most important thing. The gentleman to the right-hand side of the screen was our first citizen, our first citizen in the Izmir roadshow. He was building his own house and he was getting involved with the project and showing us how the insulation levels in his property. And he was very much interested in the process of what we were doing there. Stakeholder roadshow engagement. Why is it crucial for success? Well, I think Miguel's talked about trust. Trust is a very important thing. Citizens need to believe in the process, and the objectives and the solutions. Some of the solutions are quite radical and perhaps unfamiliar for people whose background isn't architecture or innovative technologies and sustainability. So we have to try and gain trust. And before we start any roadshow, 3 months in advance or 2 months in advance, I run the SWAT studio, which is for building technology students who land in the roadshow city and do a 2-week project there. And we find that students get involved with all the people who are potentially going to get involved in the roadshow. They present their work, and it creates kind of a trust. It opens the door. Students open the door to the stakeholders there. It builds confidence, and we invite those same stakeholders to the roadshow later on. Ownership. The roadshow wants the citizens to take ownership of their environments, and the ideas that towards sustainability without any hidden agendas, affiliations, or political constraints. We go there with an open mind, and we have no agenda. Homegrown, the solutions the outcomes of any roadshow stay with the people. We don't want to turn up as experts, say, here's the answer, then leave. They have to be part of the process, so therefore the solutions are theirs, and therefore they stay in their city. Yeah, we promote the roadshow during the SWAT studio. Some of the pictures there, there's the mayor of Menorca getting involved with the SWAT studio. There's Jesus Cardona, an architect on the island. We spent many times on radio stations, TV, and newspaper articles showing what work the students were doing and what we were going to do for the upcoming roadshow. Who is the city? You know, this is the thing people ask me. Who do you speak to? Well, we speak to anyone who's interested in getting their city sustainable. That could come from anyone. We don't necessarily target the municipality or the academic centres there. We target anyone who's interested, and we build up a network from there. Whether the ideas come from, they could come from anyone. We don't mind who they come from. You know, what we do mind is where they're going to go to next. The roadshow, it disrupts. You know, we don't hold back with the truth and what's needed to get to zero energy. So that's one thing. We don't go there in an unpolite manner, but we say what needs to be done, and we give a timeline that what perhaps the city should follow. Local, well, we have global expertise in sustainability issues, but we want to mix that with local knowledge and local energy and actually local passion and knowledge of their own context and lifestyle. We don't want to create solutions that are generic. They have to be site-specific and contextually generated. And only then can they really have any meaning. So that's why stakeholder involvement is crucial. Just one thing, the images on the right-hand side there, that was a serious game that happened on day 3 of the 5-day Menorca Roadshow. There 15 people played a serious game about the cause and effect of decision-making at various scales, from the municipality, whether you own the energy grid, whether you own a home, a family, and it was all about, it was like a game of Monopoly, if you like, and you can see the causes and effects and what happens when you make the wrong decision or the right decision. So that was quite interesting. The people there obviously stayed for the 5 days and got involved with other events. What can they learn from their experience? Well, we're very graphical. You know, imagery is very important to get our messages across. You know, we use various graphics to show what the ecological footprints are for the island in the Menorca case, for their own energy use. We're very much into articulating what the message is in a visual way. Also, what we want to say is that, you know, sustainability is not about sacrifice. You know, it's not about what you will lose. It's about what you're going to gain. That's the thing with sustainability. It's not people worry about losing their cars and various things. We try and show that there are other alternatives, and we guide the stakeholders through that process. Timetable. I prepare many roadshows, and I've learned along the way, and I think I can pass on that knowledge to the cities there. If they want to get people involved, citizens involved with a project like this, it's not a case of creating a timetable and let everybody fit to that timetable or schedule of a program. It's actually working with people, getting them involved and shaping the timetable to suit them, because stakeholders are not on the payroll. You know, they have families, they have priorities, they have other jobs, they have other priorities. So it's important that when we create a timetable like a roadshow, or whether the municipality or academic institution or whoever wants to create a similar event and advance what happens in the roadshow, that they work with the people who are going to get involved and create a timetable to suit them. Individual perspective. The images here are of Ricardo Cresselia, who's an international expert in carbon accounting. And what we've done this time on the roadshow is create a workshop that looks at individual carbon accounting. You know, how much carbon, how much energy is being used on a daily basis individually. So you'll see the names on the spreadsheet. Those are the stakeholders, the citizens who got involved with that workshop. And then once they know the maths and the formulas and how things are worked out, they have trust in what's being said about their neighborhood, what's being said about their city, in the case of Menorca, their island as well. That gives them confidence in the experience. It gives them confidence in the solutions, and also the confidence in the challenge ahead. This was what is a peripatetic pathway workshop on day 3. This is like a walking tour. Rather than sitting in a room and looking at precedent, of what sustainable cities are like, what your city could be like. We move them around the city on walks. We talk to the individuals. We show them what are possible. We take our laptops with us. We go to various nodes along the city that have already started some kinds of sustainability. In this case, in Mahan, in Menorca, we have the first introduction of a cycle lane, and we're also looked at the PV array on the Council Insular building, where we did the final presentation on the roof there. So we look at what's happening there already, and we try and see what's been done in other places to give some sort of context. So comparisons, yeah, it's not always about what you could design that's important in a roadshow or what you can learn. It's like showing people what's already been built. Maybe things that haven't been designed specifically to do a job in sustainability, but to show how other communities are working well in certain aspects. So this example is Lytham in Lancashire, United Kingdom. It's not particularly sustainable in some respects, but as an example, it showed a thriving economic high street. This was one of the problems with the Belfast, Colin, the neighbourhood of Colin in Belfast. They had a high street that wasn't working at all, and we showed them how certain things, certain programs can be introduced into your high street, slow down the road there. They were concerned about the speed of the traffic on the road, even though the area itself was quite quiet. They thought they had a very speedy, dangerous road, but in actual fact, it seemed quite slow in comparison to other places. So we showed how that could work economically and create a better lifestyle for people who lived in the neighborhood. Being highly visual, well, outcomes, have to be graphical. And you have to show before and after scenarios. This was one of the ideas in Menorca. It was a PV canopy array called La Spina Energetica. This was one of the solutions, creating a PV array along the original, the current infrastructure. There's a lot of debate in Menorca about PV farms and whether they're a blot on the landscape and various things. So this was one of the solutions. But the idea was being graphical. We got students from the SWAT studio to turn up at the roadshow to facilitate graphics, quick fire sketches and various things. Before and after, yeah, there we go. That was the site, the neighborhood site in Mahan on the left-hand side, and this is a quick visualization of how it could look. So obviously, I haven't got time to show you the entire city and island vision, but I'm trying to get across. You need graphics. You need to communicate quickly. They might not be the most prettiest graphics ever, but you're there for a very short, intensive time, and you need to show things visually. People can accept it more easily in that way. Here are some more graphics. This was a cross-section of one of the streets in Mahan. As you can see, we show what energy potentials are on the site and various things. So I'll just flip through these. In this case, there was a solar chimney idea for the street. It was all about energy collection. It was all about recycling of waste and various things and using natural cooling for their environment. I think one of the most important things about sustainability is, obviously for me anyway, it's the social aspect, not necessarily the technological. The technological aspects for me have been there for a while now, but yet many cities aren't sustainable. So there must be some sort of bottleneck, and for me it's the social acceptance of it. I think that's why the roadshow is so powerful for a very small element of a large European funded project. But I think the people we have on the roadshow and the people we meet in the cities are inspirational characters. We encourage that. When we do our final presentation on day 5 of the roadshow, we make it within 45 minutes. We don't want to go beyond the attention span of the audience. We're very clear, we're very coherent, we're very graphical. We communicate in a simple way, but with a very blunt message. And the discussions at the end are very much valued. Here we have some images of the top right there. This was in the Council Insula. There was a large debate afterwards showing the outcomes. one of the most heartfelt aspects of the roadshow for me anyway was in Belfast, the bottom right image. Day 2 of the roadshow there was in a secondary school in one of the most deprived areas of Northern Europe. And there we talked about what the roadshow was about, what sustainability is about, how their community is working in some ways and not working in other ways. So to me, it's not just about the final presentation. The roadshow tries to make links throughout the entire 5 days and the preparation with the SWAT studio. So we come to 15 minutes. So that's it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Craig. Thank you. So now to everybody, we will have some time for questions, and so you can type them into the questions tab in the GoToWebinar panel, and we will try to address as much as we can. At the same time, I just want to point out that there's a handouts panel where you can see all the presentations of today. And now, please type in your questions if you have any. Here, I already see one, which is for you, Craig. And it is what has happened in the cities in the years after a roadshow.
Okay. Well, we started the roadshows about 1.5 years ago. The first one was Belfast. I think the timescale probably hasn't elapsed enough for much realization yet. There have been several research projects that have launched from the findings of various aspects of the roadshow. I think we're looking to see what the municipalities and what the stakeholders do with the outcomes. I think the limits of the roadshow is it ends. We're looking towards ideas of how we can extend that and revisit the roadshow and try and find out exactly that question, find the answers to that question. So we're looking to find funding to or extend the budget to go back to the cities. I think the best one so far has been in Izmir, where there was an algae farm research project that's been proposed as a result of the roadshow.
Thank you, Craig.
But of course, just to say, obviously the roadshow shows the direction, it shows ideas, but it doesn't give the money to pay for it, of course. So I think the idea is to create a good European funded project that's been born out of no affiliation, no hidden agenda, and it's then up to the city to take that baton and to make it happen. I think that's no better way than a European project to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. I hope we answered your questions. If you had a follow-up question, please type it in as well. Now, in the meantime, we will move on to the second question, which is for Jorge. Jorge, how much of detailed and validated economic information do you find in the project cases? Investment models, financing models, business models, risk-sharing models? I hope you can see the question in front of you.
Yeah, I can see the question. I can see the question. I mean, most of these projects, most of the projects that are there, we're actually looking at technical aspects. So this was an issue that I realized that there is not in many projects, the issues behind the projects of the investment models are not really looked at. This would making for us a bit of a more difficult thing. But there are people that did analysis. We have reports from the previous Concerto project that you can download, and you can find their messages on these aspects. But we have, for example, REMOURBAN, which is looking at issues which is exactly looking at this, and that's an information I'm looking at so that we can report on their work, and they will have their own work. But they are looking at issues like how to finance projects, replication solutions, what models to use. So we do have some projects, and in particular I see that REMOURBAN is very active in looking at how to move projects out, and especially how to finance them. And we are looking at this, but a lot of the projects that were done until now, many of them were to do testing. And what was happening is when they were having a problem, regulatory, financial, business model, something, they were not looking at this. This was really an engineering issue. They were trying to solve a technical problem. But this is getting more and more important. So we are looking at that, and we have to prepare reports on lessons and a report on replication. And when this comes out, then we will have more to solve, to respond to you on that. I think that's what I can say at the moment.
Thank you, Jorge. Now I will have one question for Miguel. So, Miguel, please elaborate more on the solutions to the financing barriers identified in the REMOURBAN project or potential solutions that has been discussed. And we have a very short time left, so just to mention that very quick answer from Miguel, and afterwards we will address the questions and publish them on our website. If you have more, please get back to us as well. Thank you. To you, Miguel.
Okay, thank you, Jana. Okay, so well, once we have analyzed or somehow identified which are the main barriers regarding financing, we have been working somehow on trying to define which are the innovative financing schemes or business models that can be implemented. And for this, we have provided a kind of catalog based on analyzing how the different parties can share the risks and the costs associated to the investment, and then how they can somehow get the benefit from the implementation. So we have more information available in our website. I'm sorry, I need to be short. So you can find more information in our website, because we have a public deliverable as well on these innovative financing schemes that can somehow overcome these barriers. So this information is already available for cities.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Thank you everybody for attending. Please download the handouts now on your right in the GoToWebinar panel. And we will send you the recording of this webinar, again the presentations and the answers to your questions in a follow-up email. I hope you found it useful and you will join us again. And thank you to all our speakers today. You can see the contacts on your screens, so you can get in touch with all of us at any point. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Have a good day.
Okay, thank you.
And you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye, everybody.